Thanks for joining us. I'm Gabe with Backwoods Pursuit. Today I'm down at the range and I'm going to show you and go over the new Black Gold Mountain Lite sight. This new Black Gold bow sight is featuring a brand new Black Gold dual indicator system right here that gives you a couple different options for different yardages when you're needing to make a quick adjustment out in the field. So I'm going to show you how to set up the dual indicator system as well as how to set the sight up quickly on this, and then we're going to go ahead and test it when we're done with that. We're going to go to a couple different yardages, see if the dual indicator system is accurate and works the way it should once we get this all set up. If you like our content, we really do appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button for us. Follow us on our Facebook and Instagram accounts, as well as check out our website backwoodspursuit.com for other gear reviews. We're always putting new content over there as well as here on the channel. I'll put a link to all that down in the description, as well as a link to this new Mountain Lite sight down there in the description for you. So let's get to it and see how this works. Alright, first up, let's go over some of the new features on this Mountain Lite sight. So the first thing you might notice is you've got a different base right here. This is the ML3 base. It's a lighter weight base than some of the other ones that Black Gold offers, even though the other ones are very lightweight also. So this one is a little bit shorter and a little bit lighter, but you can certainly swap out this base for any of the others if you want to customize the Mountain Lite. Just like the other bases, the other sights, you can take those two off right there. That's where you would take that off and swap out this base for a different one. Also, when you're setting this up, you can take those off and move those down to a screw hole right there and right there. So if you need to have different adjustment on how the vertical slide attaches there, you can have a little bit more adjustment if you need more clearance and whatnot for your specific bow. So that's one of the features. Of course, you've got the angled place for your sight tape right there. That is super useful, so you can have a better view of that sight tape when you're at full draw and you're not having to move your bow around. You can have a really good, easy view of that sight tape. Just like the Ascent Verdict Assault, you've got the sight housing and then the same locking mechanism right there for locking that vertical slide in place, and the same adjustments as the Ascent Verdict Assault right here and right there for your windage and elevation on that setup right there. And then of course you've got your Black Gold wheel right here, the dial of death as they call it, right there to make your adjustment vertically when you're setting your sight tape and getting that all ready to go. So those are the main features here on the Mountain Lite. Now I'm going to throw it on the bow and we're going to go through how to set this up real quick. Alright, to get this thing set up on your bow, you're going to go ahead and attach the sight to your riser right here and right there via those two Allen heads. And then the next step you want to make sure you do is to get the second and third axes level. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, I've got a step-by-step video on how to do that. I'll put a link to that in the description, as well as a card right here for you, so you can go through that process to make sure that that is done before we go to the next step, which is getting your sight tape set. So to get your sight tape set, there's another step-by-step process that I made a video for that you can refer to, and I'll put a card up here for that, as well as a link in the description on how to do that. But those are two steps that you need to do before we go ahead and get the dual indicator system set up. So make sure you take care of those first. Now also, you want to check your third axis at full draw on these. You don't have to do that before we set the dual indicator system, but you definitely want to check your third axis at full draw to account for any riser torque that your bow has. I've got a video for that as well. Put a card in there and a link in the description for you so you can check out how to set your third axis at full draw. Alright, so after we've got the sight all set up, the second and third axis, got our sight tape selected and all that put together, it's time to set up the dual indicator system. So how does that actually work? Well, the concept is actually pretty simple, but it can be a little bit complicated when you add in the movable sight portion. So the way this works is you've got these two indicators, yardage indicators right here, and you can tie those two or basically align them with the pins of your choice. So in my case here, I've got the 60-yard indicator right here aligned with this 60-yard pin, and then I've elected to align this top pin as a 40-yard indicator, and so I've lined that up with my 40-yard pin. Now the way that is going to work once the sight moves is pretty simple. So the top or bottom indicator is going to move with the pin that you've selected. So as I move this sight here, I'll get a little closer for you. So this 40-yard indicator, this middle 40-yard pin right there, as this moves down, there now our 50-yard indicator, and that middle pin that was 40 before we moved it, now that's going to be our 50-yard indicator. And on this bottom indicator here is about 68 yards. So this bottom pin is now our 68-yard pin. So if you want to continue moving that, say up, you could make your top indicator here aligned with this middle pin is now a 20-yard pin, actually more about like that, 20-yard pin, which would make our bottom pin now about a 43-yard shot. So that's kind of the concept and the way that that works, and it gives you the ability to have the ability to pin gap those when you're at full draw without having to move the sight. So how could that work in the field? So let's say we've dialed in an animal that is right at 30, let's say 32 yards, right about there. 32 yards there, so we're going to use our middle pin for that. Let's say the buck jumps up, its bedded buck jumps up and runs a few yards, and we know that, say maybe the yardage is say 50 yards. Well, we know that here on our bottom pin is now going to line as about a 52-yard shot right there, so we can make that adjustment without having to let down, move our sight, or use a different pin. So as well as that, we've also got the ability here, so we have that pin gap that we know. So the top one, this 40-yard pin, would be, since I've moved it here, is now about 32 yards. Bottom one is about 52, 53 yards. So this, what used to be our 50-yard pin here, is going to be right in the middle of that. So you're going to be about 41, 42 yards. So you've got that point to reference to as well. So you can use all that when you're at full draw if you need to. So let's test it out now. Let's see if it actually does what it's supposed to do here, and see if the yardages are accurate. Obviously we're assuming that I've sighted in my sight and my bow correctly, which I've done. I did that off camera after we went through the different steps there of how to sight in the second and third axis, or sight tape. I went ahead and set those up, and let me show you one other thing on this as far as how to change these two indicators if you want to align those with a different pin for you. Alright, now if you want to set these indicators to a different pin than I have, or if you need to make a small adjustment to get them lined up just perfectly depending on your sight tape and what those gaps are, I've got of course 40 and 60 here, so if I want to change that, I can use a small Allen head here, just loosen that up, and then that top one aligns with this top indicator here. You can move that up 20, up to the 30 or whatever yardage you've got there, or whatever you want it to be, or down a little bit. Say if you wanted to go 60 and 50 for these two, or something else, you can make that adjustment for yourself. So you can align those with any of the two pins that are in your sight housing, whatever is going to be best for your situation. So let's go test these out and see if it actually works. So for the first test, I'm going to test it at 30 yards here. So I'm going to take my sight, I'm gonna move what is the 40-yard indicator here with my 40-yard pin. I'm gonna move that up to 30 yards. Okay, so now I'm gonna be shooting my 40-yard pin with that 30-yard indicator. I'm gonna shoot one right there, and then I'm gonna go out here. This is pointing to about 50 yards, and I'm gonna go see if that 50-yard indicator, using that bottom 60-yard pin, what used to be the 60-yard pin, if that's also accurate and also hits the mark at 50 yards. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to throw a camera down by the target so you can see the real-time results. Alright, moved out to 50. I have not touched the sight housing at all, just left it exactly where it was on the last shot. But we're going to send it down range here to 50 yards using now the bottom indicator here and my bottom 60-yard pin. We're at 50 yards, but because we've moved this, we had moved it up, the bottom indicator now is pointing to 50. So I'm going to be, because that's aligned with my bottom pin, that's now my 50-yard pin. I'm going to test this out to see if we are hitting dead on, which we should be at 50 yards. At least that's the way it's designed, so let's see if it works. Alright, so as you could see in that first test, that it was pretty much right on the money, save for a little bit of human error on my part. So let's stretch it out a little bit farther distance here. I'm going to go ahead and move the sight down to where that top indicator is pointing to the 60-yard marker. And the bottom indicator is, that makes it about 78 yards there. So that top indicator at 60 with my middle pin is going to be at 60 yards now. Bottom indicator at 78 yards is going to be with my bottom pin. The bottom pin is going to be 78 yards. So let's try this out and we'll see how it works. Alright, so 60 yards with that top indicator and middle pin looked good. Let's move out to 78 yards. I'm not going to move this sight at all. Leave it right where it's at right now and go shoot that 78 yard with my bottom pin, and we'll see where we end up. So as you can see, once again, that was pretty much right on the money, save for a little human error on my part. I would say it works really, really well. The question is it something that would be helpful for you? Is it something you would use out in the woods? Is that going to simplify things for you out in the woods? Does it make it more complicated? Something you would use? Drop a comment down there in the comment section for you. We'll read and respond to each one of those. Love to hear your feedback on this site and what you think of that. Thanks again for watching here today. I'll drop a link to this site in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.